Mama, do you want if you don't want her?
In 1960, British pop was in a critical condition. Rock and roll had been given a suit and tie and invited onto the variety circuit.
The English music scene just seemed so kitsch. It was all very contained. Emotionally, it was very contained. There didn't really seem to be any excitement about it.
But a more urgent brand of music was gradually being imported from America that was to have a profound effect on the British scene: blues.
Oh, smokestack lightning.
It was to be the inspiration for groups as diverse as the Yardbirds and Manfred Mann, John Mayall's Blues Breakers and Cream, Blind Faith and Led Zeppelin. Not that it was easy to come by.
I can remember walking 3 miles to see a John Lee Hooker album cover, which a man had, and he brought to the front door to show me. You know, I didn't hear it or anything. I just sort of knocked on his door and said, "You've got a John Lee Hooker album." It was so difficult to hear anything.
The first British blues band was Alexis Corner's Blues Incorporated. Their most important gig was on a Saturday night underneath an ABC tea shop in Ealing.
I can remember meeting people from all over Britain at the Ealing Club. And of course the camaraderie was fantastic. There was a real... you belonged to a society. It was a fairly secret... wasn't intending to be a secret society, but there were so few of us in those early days.
By the time the Ealing Club was established, Blues Incorporated contained 3 refugees from the esoteric and unprofitable world of British jazz: saxophonist Dick Hextor-Smith, bass player Jack Bruce, and drummer Ginger Baker. They would have a crucial influence on the development of the R&B boom.
We decided that the only way we were going to really make some money was to go commercial, you know, and we made a deliberate plan to go commercial and sort of start playing, you know, like rhythm and blues as opposed to jazz. It just took off, and it was a whole new thing. Half the band was straight blues players and half the band was straight jazz players. And sort of when we all played together, like the effect we had on each other was amazing.
Another similarly minded outfit began at an unlikely venue for an aspiring jazz band: Butlin's Clacton.
Mike Hugg was then playing vibes and I was playing piano in the group, and that's how we met. The South Seas Bar at Butlin's. It's laughingly called a holiday camp. We were attempting to play music that the audience thought was relaxing afternoon or evening music, but which we, wink, wink, nod, nod, thought was jazz. We tried very, very hard to turn living as a jazz group. And it was Mike Hugg, to his credit, who suggested that we form a rhythm and blues band.
The Rolling Stones were the first homegrown rhythm and blues band to taste real success. Their gigs at the Crawdaddy Club, based in a pub in Richmond, began to attract other aspirant blues musicians.
At a gig at the Station Hotel, I was introduced to Eric Clapton, who was there, you know, to see the Stones as well, and we got talking. We formed a band which lasted for about 6 months called the Roosters, but we just couldn't find a bass player. And this was 1963, the summer. By the winter of 1963, I mean, you could take your pick of people who wanted to play bass in a rhythm and blues band.
When the Rolling Stones outgrew their residency at the Crawdaddy, another local band, the Yardbirds, were ready to take their place. By now the band contained former Rooster Eric Clapton, who had attended the same school as rhythm guitarist Chris Dreyer, and new singer Keith Relf from Art College. He was recruited just before the Yardbirds auditioned for Giorgio Gamelski, who ran the Crawdaddy.
We did an audition rehearsal or whatever across the road, and he appeared, and he seemed to know what he was doing.
He was in the lineup when Giorgio Gamelski came down to the rehearsal room, and we did about 4 or 5 numbers, and he said, "Okay, babies, next Saturday, you're off."
When we played, everyone seemed to take to him in the audience, and he sort of had his little group of fans.
Another key figure in the blues scene was working as a graphic artist in Manchester and playing blues as a hobby.
There wasn't any suggestion in my mind that you could earn a living from it, so it wasn't until I was 30 when Alexis Corner and Cyril Davis created a market for blues publicly that what I'd always played then became relevant.
John was very much the very intense sort of band leader. We'd arrive at a gig, we'd set up, we'd just run through a couple of things. There's no such thing as sound check, because I think there was a vocal mic and a PA, and that was that. So then we'd drift off to the bar or go and have something to eat. John would then go and stand outside the entrance with a clicker and click how many people actually came in. And then at the last minute, run in and jump on stage, and we'd start playing.
I've always loved being a band leader, and it helps to have a fuller understanding of really what life on the road is like, and what creating music is like, and personal relationships and diplomacy, all those things that you have to learn if you're a leader.
Each big city had its own R&B clubs. Every weekend, van loads of musicians, most of them holding down day jobs during the week, would head out to all corners of Britain.
We would never stay overnight anywhere. We'd get in this van, and John had built 3 bunk beds in the back. So we had all the gear in the end of the van. The driver, John sat in the front, or quite often lay on one of these bunks, and we'd take turns in the front seat. And we'd drive all the way back from Newcastle and get home about 5 in the morning, go to sleep, get up, leave about midday the next day for Birmingham. And so it went on.
Not everyone was travelling in the same direction. In 1964, Cyril Davis, the co-founder of Blues Incorporated, got fed up with the increasingly jazzy sound of the band and left. He was replaced by one of the most colourful characters on the British jazz scene, Graham Bond. Soon he, Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce began to play as a trio on their nights off. The band within a band was soon to strike out on its own.
We were doing a gig at the Flamingo, and it was Saturday rehearsal, and I arrived to see Graham was talking to Alexis on stage. And then Jack arrived, and Graham come up and, well, that's it, I've left. We've left. I said, what do you mean we've left? It's all right, Alexis is cool, it's okay. And Graham had in fact left the Alexis Corner band for the 3 of us without even consulting us.
And I turned up for the gig, and Alexis was really strange. It was like really cold, and it turned out that I had left the band. Alexis didn't. 10 years or more went by. He never forgave me for that for years and years. But it was Graham. He pulled a stroke. He just pulled a stroke. Graham was always pulling strokes.
I remember a gig we did at the Marquee where we were getting 40 quid a gig, right? And we used to pack the Marquee out. And this particular day, I remember at the end of the gig, I'm packing up my drums, and John G, the manager, come up, and he's absolutely livid because apparently Graham had picked the money up before the gig and then picked the money up again after the gig from 2 different people.